evening, and welcome to our first program of the Rentrée, as they say in France, and as we say here at French Heritage Society. Thank you all so much for your continued support of French Heritage. And although our landscape is a little different this fall, we are very excited to begin our program. And I've got some news that's hot off the press. We're going to have a virtual gala this year to celebrate French heritage. We are extremely pleased that we will have the acclaimed French international designer, Robert Couturier, as our honored guest. And in a way, it's extremely exciting because it means all of our friends and all of our chapters from all around the United States and Paris, if they're late owls, will be able to join us on Thursday, November 19th for this gala event. But tonight, I'm just so happy to welcome our dear friend, Gaëtan Bruel, who is the cultural counselor of the French Embassy in New York at the Cultural Services here. And Gaëtan arrived about a year ago, in fact, exactly a year ago. And he is so full of passion for the culture of France and how to weave these marvelous relationships with these American compatriots. He's already visited a number of our chapters, formed friendships there. And Gaëtan then led us on a marvelous tour of the Pantheon. I'm sure we're going to hear about that tonight. Very private tour, a la French Heritage Society. And even gave us crepes made by himself in his own apartment to start the Bonne Année, the new year. We have many, many plans of collaboration together, and I cannot begin to express how fortunate we are to have Gaëtan as the cultural counselor of France in America. I now give the baton, je passe le baton, to Jennifer Herlin, our fearless executive director, who will lead, I know, a fascinating conversation with dear Gaëtan Bruel. Jennifer?
And thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. A bit of housekeeping before we begin. I encourage you to submit questions throughout using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And at the end of the program, we'll actually turn everybody's videos on, so you'll be able to ask questions then too. But it's a real treat for me to have this time with Gaëtan, who took on the role, as Libba said, of cultural counselor about a year ago. And in his relatively short amount of time here, he's been such a good friend to our organization. Gaëtan's background is impressive, and before we begin, I'd like to share a bit about it. Since 2017, he has served as an advisor to the French Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs, spearheading cultural diplomacy in the Americas. He also worked at the French Ministry of Defense as an advisor to the Minister of Culture, helping to establish relationships with universities and think tanks. Gaëtan's time at the French Ministry of Culture saw him serve as administrator of the Arc de Triomphe and the Pantheon, and he was responsible for managing monument restoration and hosting nearly 3 million and educational programming designed to highlight the significance of these two icons. And that's where I'd like to begin this evening's conversation. As Libba mentioned, Gaëtan led such a memorable visit of the Pantheon for French Heritage Society's Chairman Circle members in November. And when I say visit, we started at the bottom and we climbed all the way to the top to an area that I didn't even know was accessible to the public. And it was during that visit that we were really able to experience his contagious passion for and knowledge about this place firsthand. So Gaëtan, my first question for you is, how did your time inside the Pantheon and the Arc de Triomphe shape your view of the importance of French heritage in France?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Libba. I would say that that's not an easy question for me because my time at the Pantheon and the Arc de Triomphe shaped not only my view of the importance of French heritage, but also myself as a cultural actor and talk about the Pantheon, and knowing that I can speak for hours about it, I brought you to our friends tonight some photo to give you an idea of what being the director of the Pantheon means and what it meant to me. So let me share for a minute my screen. Okay, I believe that everyone can see now. So here is a picture not of the Pantheon, but of the Arc de Triomphe on New Year's Eve. I must say I was inside this night. As the picture shows, so it's a challenging monument for its director, because there are not only 1.5 million visitors a year, but also there are powerful unions working there. Because just simply the Arc de Triomphe has the same symbolic power as the Louvre on French television, but it's much easier. So the unions over the years have taken up the practice of sending their best specialists in protesting to the monument. And they were very active during my time there, and it was, I must say, challenging sometimes. But, and I change for the Pantheon, obviously the Pantheon was and remains my greatest passion among the French monuments. Each monument has something magical. We all know that, because there are these places where space meets time. I would say that it's almost philosophical for me. We are all searching for lost time, but through monument, precisely, we can reconnect with the past. We can travel back and forth in history, and also we can think about the future in a different way. And I believe that once you have discovered this magical power of monuments, you cannot help but just think about how to make them part of your life. So in my case, I had known the Pantheon for years before working there, because I studied in this wonderful area. But the day I received the keys to the monument felt like the beginning of really another life. So this is the Pantheon, and I'm sure you know this building. And this is me on the rooftop of the Pantheon, close to the flag, the small guy over the top. I was this day taking this picture. So this is the picture I was taking, and so this is the other view. Just to start and not to be too long, but what does it mean to be director or administrator of the Pantheon? It first means that you have the most extraordinary office in Paris. This is the view from my office. So you are like within the building, not at the very top, but I would say like 10 floors high. This is another view from my office. So I certainly wasn't taking the stairs every 5 minutes, but it was quite convenient to have a look on the public coming to the monument. And this is my office at night, the window you see from the outside. I'm going quickly because there are a lot of pictures. So I was often the first to arrive in the morning at the monument. And I was always the last to leave it at night. In the evening, when the last visitors have gone home, you have to put you in this position. You are alone in the shadows of the monument, alone with the departed, alone with Victor Hugo, with Marie Curie, with Voltaire. The families of the grands hommes and the grandes femmes. And for example, just to tell you an anecdote, as I was closing the monument around 7 p.m., it was during winter, I saw a woman arriving to the monument with a rose in her hands. And this woman, who looked like my grandmother, was actually the granddaughter of a scientist interred at the Pantheon, Paul Painlevé. So I reopened the monument for her, and just the two of us, we walked together to the crypt for an hour with Paul Painlevé. So this is another picture at night from the top of the monument, looking over the nef. Actually, the Pantheon has hundreds of extraordinary stories to tell. So this is another picture at night, but here, for example, we can see one and some monument. Le Panthéon, for example, hosts the biggest collection of historical graffiti in Paris, more than 20,000 everywhere in the building. So this is one famous graffiti from the 19th century, but actually the building looked like that. So like graffiti just everywhere. I also had to deal with some protests at the Pantheon because why not? But one of my favorite activities was obviously, and this is what we did with Jennifer and Liba and a few of you, was climbing up to the top. Once again, 26 floors, this is me, just watching Paris all around me at different hours of the day, and really this feeling remains unique for me. We did a lot of events, including, this is another picture from the very top, like from the 26th floor, and you have really a 360 view all over Paris from the Quartier Latin. We did a lot of events, including concerts like this one or this one. It was a bit crowded this day. Also, we organized a ceremony to officially welcome the new French citizens, like this one. Performing arts, like reading at night, like dance. This is another view from the top. And we can see like the shadow of a bird. This is a woman doing a performing show. I was also working with my colleagues on restoring the monument. This is one of the many rooms that we use for restoring the monument with a view over the Quartier Latin. And I must say that changing the flag myself every 2 months, because it gets dirty quickly, was also an important activity for me. But once again, and I will stop here with the Pantheon, but the balcony right across my office, looking over the monument when the visitors were leaving and when the silence was suddenly back in the building. Really, this remains as a feeling that I will carry with me for a long time. And that feeling is the motivation for a lot of things I'm still doing today. So and this is the same view at night from the balcony across my former office. And this is another thing. So to return to your question, Jennifer, I would say that I experienced as a director of the Pantheon what actually every visitor can experience. But I was lucky enough to have a supercharged experience. But the fact that absolutely nothing is more powerful and magical than a monument, because actually nothing else has this power to reconnect you with history and to expected. I do believe that this building is to be shared with anyone. And this is what we do also through FHS. So this idea of empowering people by giving them this awareness of the power of monuments is really just one of my greatest goals in life, including as cultural councillor of France here. And I know this is a guiding passion that we share all here tonight.
And absolutely. And I think you touched on it a little bit, but heritage has a connotation that is anchored in the past. But in France, there are so many innovations in this area. And I've personally always felt that heritage is a happening in France. It's vibrant, it's active, it's celebrated. And how is this cultivated in France? You alluded to a few examples at the Pantheon, but what makes this the case there?
I think you make an excellent point here. In France, and we all know that, monuments are familiar places. They can be part of everyday life. Actually, everyone is a bit of an historian in France because you live surrounded by such beautiful places that bear the marks of the time. American cities obviously are fascinating, but they don't have the same historic depth that we can find in France. So we don't only visit these monuments, but we discuss them. We make them the subject of TV, of very successful TV programming, for example. And if I can, I would like just to mention one example, and I should actually get back to the, sorry. Yes, to another picture. An example of that is something that for the past 3 years has passioned all of France. This is the Loto du Patrimoine. I'm sure some of you know about the Loto du Patrimoine. So the story is simple. A TV host, Stéphane Bern, well known in France, had the idea a few years ago to launch a lottery to help save monuments in peril. This raised not only awareness for the cause of cultural heritage across a broad French public, but also the idea was to raise, obviously, money in support of heritage. And it was a huge success because just for the first edition, more than 250 monuments received financial aid for a total of 21 million euros in support of heritage. The third edition will be launched soon, supporting many other iconic sites. Each edition is quite different, and I wanted just, for example, to give you an overview and an example of this new edition. I hope you can see the screen. Mm-hmm. So the program this year includes le mur à pêche or the pitch walls in Montreuil. This is just an incredible monument that you can see on the screen, a monument to the culture of agriculture in the heart of a Parisian suburb city center. This elaborate structure was built when France was still a kingdom, and the idea was to allow delicate peach trees to adapt to the Parisian climate, which is not so easy. But over the years, over the decades, it was gradually abandoned, becoming a ruin, becoming a dump. And the goal of this project that we support through the Loto du Patrimoine is not only to highlight the memory of a place, of the people, truly, but also to protect the unique biodiversity in a city not so far from Paris. So just to give you an example of this living relationship between the French and their heritage.
Yeah, and I think the Loto du Patrimoine is actually something that will ensure a future for keeping this in conversation. And French Heritage Society this year, when the announcement was made, we had already supported two of the projects that are part of the Mission Bern for 2020. One is the Abbey de la Grâce, and the second is the Balada Church in Martinique. So we're always really proud of that when the announcement is made, and there are projects that we've been a part of, because it's great to see them receive that additional level of support. And how do you see this going forward? What kind of future endeavors are in the works or are going to be undertaken to keep heritage front of mind and to keep supporting these places and giving them the voice and giving them the press that they need?
Because the love of the French people for their heritage has never been so strong. Our education system plays an important role in promoting this passion. Our heritage is really a national cause. But I would say that what I find especially striking at this moment is the arrival of a new generation, young people the same age as me, younger, who purchase and restore chateaux everywhere in France. There is, for example, there is even an award, the Young Restorers Prize, le Prix du Jeune Restaurateur, so it was launched by la Fondation des Monuments Historiques, and this prize awards an important amount, an annual 25,000 euros, to a young person who has taken on an historic monument to support them in the restoration process. So another example is, for example, the group who launch themselves on this kind of adventure, of endeavor, within like this network of 30,000 castles in France. And they do that by mobilizing the media, organizing crowdfunding. So in short, I think that heritage has a future on all fronts. And as I was saying earlier, I think that these places are not held down by the past. They are really anchored in the passage of time. And the future is really part of what they are. And if we take good care of them, we can bet that they will be still around, even when we ourselves are not. But perhaps to give you another example, I'm sorry, I don't have a picture for this one, but just think about Versailles. Louis XIV, Louis XIV, thought of Versailles as an all-encapsulating place, a place completely organized around him. But the place actually outlived him. The place has continued to live beyond Louis XIV through history and through episodes that Louis XIV could have never thought about. So for me, that's why Le Château de Versailles is even larger than Louis XIV and than other historical figures. And even though Louis XIV was someone important. So I do believe that heritage is also, and perhaps first and foremost, a matter of future.
And some of these innovations you've mentioned are exactly how this is going to continue to have an important role in French society and, of course, over here as well. But as we look at the current situation and the pandemic, which has, of course, had a significant impact on all sectors, it's also impacted French managing, or are there any opportunities or surprises that have come out of this situation?
Obviously, I would say that these times have been difficult for everyone, but except maybe for the monuments, because they could take a breath without visitors. And I think it was also important and positive for them. So we should also highlight the positive sides of this period. At Chambord, for example, I was talking the other day with the director of Chambord, and he told me that it had been many years since the animals like the deer, the eagles, came so close to the chateau. And it was quite new for him, even after 8 years at the Château de Chambord. Same at Versailles. Like, for example, Marie Antoinette's garden was left untouched for several months during the shutdown, and actually regained the wide look that it used to have in the 18th century, when Marie Antoinette was there. And Catherine Pégard, the president of the Château de Versailles, just decided to keep not all the domain, but the gardens of the Petit Trianon on this mode. So they won't be trimmed again, but left in their like natural shape to respect not only the nature, but also history, because once again, it was the look they had back in time. The lockdown period was obviously also a moment for some renovation projects, but also like Jean d'Aussonville at Chambord told me that, for example, 1,000 trees were planted, and this is also a beautiful symbol of this period. Of course, beside the positive aspects, this period had some economic consequences for French heritage. But I think we must keep in mind that the French government has been involved since the beginning of the crisis, ensuring, for example, the fact that no one would lose their job in the field of heritage. This is obviously, but for obvious reasons, one of the largest differences between France and the US. The fact that in the way we manage the crisis, the fact that in France, the safeguarding of cultural employees was really a national priority. But it was a national priority because it was a matter of consensus between the government, the cultural actors, and obviously the French citizens. So this was for the beginning of the crisis. And a few days ago, the government announced a relaunch plan for the upcoming months. And the amount of money is unprecedented. So it can look small for the US context, but really, in the French context, this amount is highly significant.
I can assure you that seems like a significant amount over here too. That's fantastic news. And as we cross the Atlantic and come to this side, and we see the efforts that you and that Cultural Services undertake here in the United States to promote French heritage, what does that look like for you? And do you have any plans that you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yeah, a lot, because even though the cultural services promote all aspects of French culture, and I can assure you this is a vast mission, but question of heritage are really at the heart of what we want to do. So just to mention quickly some of our initiatives and projects for the coming months. First, I am bringing on a conservator from the Louvre, François Bridet, to create a new department of heritage, in charge of heritage within our team in New York. And François and this department, François will arrive in 1 month. And from then, they will work closely with French Heritage Society, obviously, but also other important actors in the field of heritage in the US. So this is one example. From that, we plan to increase exchanges between curators in both countries. And we plan to precisely implement scholarships to foster these collaborations between museums and cultural institutions, because we believe that this can be a useful instrument to use. I'm also working, this is one of our most ambitious projects. I hope we can achieve it. I'm working on creating a next generation program for women in the field of heritage in France, for women who are in the position to become future directors for monuments or museums in the coming years, and who we plan to support on that path with a year-long program providing the best of the knowledge of the US, meetings, networking, all of these elements that can be useful and that can actually transform a career path in France in the field of heritage. Another thing that I have in mind is the fact that I would very much like to involve young people in heritage. And this is a mission I share with Blake and John Sonny. I don't know if they are here, but so they are the excellent co-chairs of the FHS Young Patron Circle. And we have been discussing a lot, and we have a few exciting projects for the upcoming months. And finally, among other things, but I want to mention the fact that we have a secret project, because it's always good to have a secret project to allow you to, in a few months, to see the most famous French heritage sites as you have never seen them before, and also to allow you to discover places that even the French Heritage Society doesn't know about, which is not an easy task. We can agree on that. But once again, I will stop there because it's always good to have something mysterious in the works.
Exactly. Well, there's also a little something that we have in the works together, which is in line with the other part of the giving that we do, which is to restoration projects in the United States, which includes the beautiful Venetian room at your home here. And how do you feel that these efforts complement the work that you're doing here?
We are very proud of our building on the Fifth Avenue and immensely grateful to FHS for the Venetian Room project. Many of you know my predecessor, Bénédicte de Molor, and with Bénédicte, we really share a common passion for heritage and a passion for this building. And Bénédicte was instrumental in so many projects, but including for the building, the restoration of the Venetian Room, something that we did together with FHS, but also the launch of a very ambitious campaign of renovation of the reception spaces on the second floor. And I am now continuing this great project while actually adding another project, because this building is definitely full of possibilities. And this new project, the latest one, is the rediscovery of the last floor. This is something I wanted to show you quickly. Oh, sorry, because this is the Mur des Pêches, and this is the Mur des Pêches today. Back, it's a picture from the beginning of the 20th century, but we are now on the last floor of the cultural services on the Fifth Avenue at the south corner of the Met, in front of Central Park. And this is the fifth floor studio. It was originally designed as a study for Mrs. Helen Hay Whitney, the first owner of the building. And you can see here like the ornate painted wooden ceiling, You can actually not see, but trust me, they are magnificent. Tomates de Provence, and obviously sweeping views of Central Park. So it was like the perfect space, a tranquil and inspiring space for her, for Mrs. Ellen Hay Whitney, to write, to play the piano, to entertain friends. The problem is the fact that this space, which was so an exceptional example of Gilded Age interior design, over the decades, it was transformed. It was divided like in 3 rooms, 3 office spaces. And so today, just the space is just another one. So my aim with the team and with our ambassador, Philippe Etienne, is to bring this hidden gem back to its original glory by so not only unifying the space and restoring to the space in its original architectural elements. So this is the first part of the project, an ambitious restoration project. But I also want to dedicate this space first to French cultural institutions coming to New York because they can use it, they could use it as an inspiring workspace, an intimate venue for events, for talks, for receptions. But this is also definitely for you, for FHS, and what we could do together. Beside the global tour of the building that we'll be doing together, I'm planning to organize a special private visit of this space, also to have some advice. So for everyone here interested, just get in touch and let's organize it like this fall.
I had the opportunity to visit that with one of our board members, Tim Corrigan, and he was just absolutely enthralled with the space. And I can't wait to see what becomes of it. I think there's so much opportunity there. And then my last question for you is, what role do you feel that American organizations like French Heritage Society play in this support of French heritage? And do you see additional opportunities there for us?
I mean, once again, this is a tough question because you are helping in so many ways. In cultivating love of French heritage, in sharing it beyond the cliché, in going to far corners of France that I myself have not visited yet. You are like more French than I am in doing so. And needless to say that with your generous support, and you just mentioned that actually you accomplished the goals of the Loto du Patrimoine before the Loto du Patrimoine. and really we are grateful because your work allows like dozens of monuments to stand proud and to survive today. And I think this is just a great achievement. If I'm like globally impressed by the dynamic at FHS, by your enthusiasm, even in these difficult times, your intimate knowledge of France, obviously this owes a great deal to your president, Elizabeth Stribling, who was, and I want if Liba allows me to say that, Liba was one of the first people I met actually when I arrived in New York one year ago. And I have to say that this was a coup de foudre, love at first sight, because we enjoy a shared vision. And I must add that this shared vision that we have, we also share it with the foreign minister, the French foreign minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, with whom I had been working for 6 years, when he bestowed upon Liba the Legion of Honor at its like highest level, one of the highest level possible, Commandeur. It was like in last fall, it was a unique ceremony, which says a lot, once again, not only about the exceptional commitment of Liba to French heritage, but also about the extraordinary dynamism of your organization. So after the praise, perhaps, here is the plan, because as you mentioned it, there are so many things to do. And I believe that we are sister organizations, the Cultural Services and FHS, and there is once again so much to be done. I believe in particular that it would be important to go even beyond chateau and monument. because French heritage is also furniture. And by the way, I applaud the program that you just launched with Christie's. This is just magnificent. We have our own ideas in mind for furniture with the Mobilier National. But this is one thing. Another thing not to be forgotten is gastronomy, gastronomic heritage. Just to put it simply, what is more complex? What is more subtle? What is more a matter of taste, a matter of education? What is more delicious indeed than a meal at a Michelin star restaurant here in New York or in Provence, for example? Yes, you can spend some dollars and buy, it's quite easy, a bottle of Chassagne Montrachet. But to enjoy a bottle of Chassagne Montrachet, for example, it can take years to really, discover its mystery. And that's another reason, like furniture, like gastronomy, why I believe that we need people like you, like organizations like FHS, to share this passion and knowledge. I don't know if Georges Steck is with us, but
he's here.
Georges is not only one of the best, but truly the best defender of French gastronomic heritage. And I'm sure with Georges and all of you, we can agree on the fact that either we talk about chateau, furniture, Guide Michelin, Chassagne Montrachet, and others, all these elements work together. And actually, they are the American friends of the Louvre, the American friends of the Opéra de Paris, for Versailles. But for me, FH, because you cover all of this field, all of these aspects. And that's why you are so important for us. So I think that there is, to finish somewhere, but I think that there is so much to be done, but at the same time, the way we are about to do it, like with this project, it's just the best way possible, because that's just wonderful to be with friends. And I very much like the spirit of FHS, the fact that you are first and foremost a circle of friends, people that I very enjoyed the company, Odile and Guy, the co-chair of the chapter in New York, but also Yann Cotelem, Georges. I don't know if Astrid is here from Paris.
Yes.
I also want to add just one word for Susie Wasserman from Atlanta, because it was an enormous pleasure to travel to Atlanta and to meet Susie and your chapter there. It was before the pandemic, but it was just incredible to discuss heritage like in Atlanta in Georgia. And once again, as soon as it is safe to travel again and to resume my travels across the US, I really look forward to visiting your other chapters, like the one in Dallas and others. And so feel free to reach out to me for that. Sorry,
Thank you so much. No, American Friends of France is a beautiful way for us to end the conversation. And we're going to turn people's screens on so you can participate in the conversation.